Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Richelle Plett of RLP Interiors is with us on the podcast today for a second time. Richelle joined us initially on episode 8 in 2018, entitled Stepping Back Can Be a Growth Strategy. At that time, Richelle shared that she was closing her custom upholstery shop after many years and many iterations, as well as the difficulty she was facing from not having a scalable business and not digging into the financials earlier. Since then, Richelle is finding new ways to push through after implementing Profit First and is continuing to push forward with courage into the new challenges and opportunities that are before her. In our conversation today, we're focusing on how to pick up and move forward, how to readjust our view, and how to work without a safety net. I'm so thankful to Richelle for sharing so freely with our industry, and she credits the industry and the sharing and the camaraderie within as being a strong support for her. I hope you enjoy this podcast and feel encouraged for whatever struggle or challenge you're facing. Keep going. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Richelle, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm doing great today.
Great.
It is sunny and beautiful here. How about there?
Yeah, fall. Fall has reared its ugly head.
Oh my gosh. Summer. Do you? I'm excited for fall. We are still in 90-degree weather here. So it's still, I would say, summerish here, even though we are into the fall months. It still feels very much like summer, but welcome to the South.
Well, I would move there in a heartbeat. I broke out a sweater today.
Oh my gosh. I'm still in a tank top and shorts, so feel free to come on down. I am super excited to talk to you today and just to share a little more of your journey of transition in your business. And you were so great to share with us a few months ago about your business and about the changes that were coming and just a real honest discussion. And I want to tell you, I know that there were bits and pieces that you're like, I can't believe I shared that. But I want to just publicly applaud you for sharing it, because we are so used to this stinking highlight reel on everything of social media that it makes so many people feel less than and like they can't do. I mean, it's just not even a true story, right? It's like airbrushing. It's
Right.
Oh gosh, what were those pictures they used to have done in the 80s? The glamour shots. It's like the glamour shot of today for our businesses.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're kind of right.
Yeah, like we all get the filters. Remember those, where they had the filters, they had the extra makeup, you had the boa and the pearls and the sparkles or whatever it was. It was to make us look the most glamorous version of ourselves. And I really think that's what social media has done. I'm not saying there's not a place for it, but I think it has been so changed that it's glamour shots.
Yep. And behind the scenes, we're all wearing a tube top clipped in back that nobody can see.
That's exactly right. And, again, as a coach, not that I don't get people that call me that their life has glamour in it. It certainly does. But I get a lot of calls from people saying, I can't do that. I can't keep up. I'm struggling, whatever their challenge is. And so that's more of what I want my podcast to be, is that we talk about the realness of business. We can talk about the exciting part. We can talk about the glamour shots that we did, and everybody knows we had them all styled when they did it. We know we had our hair and makeup done, whatever. But that's not usually the day. And we all are facing some kind of challenge. It could be the challenge of, should I hire? Who should I hire? Should I hire now? Should I close this part of the business? Should I open another part? Should I go retail? Should I not go retail? I mean, there's a long litany of questions that comes with business as we're moving forward. And so that's why I really love having very real conversations. And the one we had was like that. It was, hey, here's what I did and what worked. Here were some things that didn't work. Here's maybe where I should have adjusted. And I think you said didn't adjust quickly enough or kept hoping that it would get better. All the realness. And it's what I deal in all day, every day. And so I just applaud you for, I just love a real conversation with a real person. And so thank you for that.
Well, I'm very real, and I will say it's been almost exactly a year. It was a year ago, I believe when we recorded, it was a year ago, Labor Day weekend, that I was moving out of my retail space and took time to do the podcast with you. So it's been almost exactly a year since we recorded this.
That's right. That's right. And so because I know that there are so many people transitioning, again, just even within their business, whatever it is they're doing, getting in, getting out, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you, to have the conversation on what it really looks like. So the last time we spoke, you were in a very real transition. You were closing your retail and your workroom, your upholstery workroom, and you were taking care of some debt and moving forward. Tell us a little bit about where that is and about kind of that, a little bit of your journey on where you are now.
Well, I'm still in that transition phase. It's been a period of time, probably, it was several months that I took some time to kind of just regroup and look at things before I put my head back down and started to try to market again. And that was some online marketing. I realized that I need to rebrand. I've had some great conversations with design peers who've helped me look at what message I'm putting out and help me identify, is that the message that I'm looking for? Because I'm sending mixed messages. Having come from one portion of the industry or one sect of the industry into another one has probably been my biggest challenge to start at ground zero. So for instance, I had a nice size email list. I thought it was a nice size. I had about 2,000 people on my email list. Well, when you rebrand and you're no longer sending off information for one aspect of interior design, which for me was specifically upholstery and restoration of vintage upholstery, you lose your entire client base and your audience base. So right now I'm in the process of discovering and rebranding and tweaking my website yet again so that it appeals to that ideal client that we all talk about in marketing. And yeah, that's what I'm currently working on now. So realize that all of the experience that I have is beneficial in one area, but it doesn't necessarily translate to what I'm wanting in terms of a portfolio.
Okay.
So that's kind of the struggle that I am in right now from a marketing standpoint, is how to rebuild a portfolio.
Okay, that brings up a really great thought there, is that when we shift our business, no matter, it doesn't really matter why we're shifting. Let's just say we're choosing to shift it.
Right.
Then whoever was your ideal client or who was ever on that list or your email marketing list or the people that you were talking to that cared about your services, when your services change, they may not be the same people that care about the change.
Exactly. I did have something really, I'll just tell a real quick little story. I am selling a couple of chairs. I just sold them on Facebook Marketplace that were pieces that I had in my studio, and they were designer sample pieces. And I posted them on my business Facebook page and said, hey, I'm selling this great chair. It was, a sample piece. And I had, oh my gosh, a flood of people wanting these chairs. And the one woman who bought it was a previous client of mine 6 years ago. So she just happens to be a branding specialist here in Kansas City. So we're going to do a little bit of a trade for design work, which is win-win for both of us. But I was asking her about what she does and what her vision of my transition is. And she said, I've been following you for 6 years, and I may not have bought anything else in that time period, but she's told me she hangs on every word I said. And I'm like, what? Really? So you never know what, okay, bottom line, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Take what you do know, but find a way to appeal broadly with it to see what sticks. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, it does. Here's what it makes me think of as well. Don't assume that whoever is on your list from past offerings won't translate. Give them a chance to self-edit. Sometimes we edit and go, oh, they won't care. And they actually might come with us. So we don't need to be as editing. We need to let them self-edit. It's almost like, I know when Kay Whitaker was on the show with me, and we were talking about email marketing, and I was telling her how much I didn't want to bug people. And for those of you who are now on my email list, you get about 4 emails a month, up from my 1 a month. And she said to me, you're not emailing enough, Michelle. The people that want to hear what you have to say, where it's really great content, they're going to read what you send them. Give them a chance. If they don't want to be part of it, they'll get out of it. And I've been really shocked because my engagement's gone up. People have been asking more questions, and I'm sending newsletters and articles and things that I'm writing. I mean, I write 3 a month. So it's information, and these people have moved with me, and I would have thought that they wouldn't have. And so I think that is a really great point, Richelle, is we give them a chance to self-edit. We don't edit them in advance.
Right. Yeah. It really has had me thinking since she mentioned that. I thought, nobody wants this, or nobody really cares about that. And, maybe I have lost some of the people that were specifically interested in topic X, but there are people who just like your style, who like your brand, and those are the people who will come with you. It just,
and if they like your X, they might
really touching.
And if they like your X, they might like your Y.
Right.
So we don't need to cut them out. That's a really good point, and something to consider as we're transitioning. We give them the chance to come with us. We don't cut them off and go, I was going over here with you, and now I'm not going over there. So you're no longer invited to come over here. I mean, what we really want to do is see if we can get them to come with us. Right. And so very, very good point. What do you think, given that you're I won't say you're only a year in, you're a year into the transition that we talked about the last time, but that transition had been going on for multiple years where you had tried different things. In this last year, though, Richelle, what would you say has been the hardest part of transitioning your brand and transitioning your offerings and transitioning your deliverables?
The portfolio aspect, because the previous focus of my business was the restoration of chairs and turning them into functional art. So my portfolio is covered in, before and after chairs. Well, I would have some design clients that I would work with, and it all would start with a chair, and we would nibble into their rooms. But when you would circle back, nothing that I ever had was pretty enough to come back and take photos that are applicable to full service interior design. So that has been a challenge. And then the second layer of that would be, when you're struggling with the finances, it's a nice idea to be able to do your own home and to do those vignettes, but sometimes you just don't even have that. And that's been the financial struggle. And it's not comfortable to say that we've been financially struggling, but the business that I had and closing that has put my family and me in such, I don't want to say dire straits, but it felt like it. It felt very desperate there for a minute. You don't have, I just now got my sofa. Here's a little story. My sofa that I had always intended to get into the upholstery studio and have redone. 7 years later, I just got it back last week. So It feels like that feels to me like a very significant step forward, because earlier on I couldn't do for myself. There was nothing And that was very symbolic. There was nothing that I could do for me or for my family because the business was a money pit, because it was poorly managed. Profit First has really changed and allowed me the freedom and understanding my budget in order to make me feel comfortable getting that little step for me and for my family.
That's awesome.
A shame. It was kind of funny.
That's a shame.
Okay. But things are coming around with that, and it really is very much. Profit First has really helped that my budget. It's not that it's magically made money appear. It's made me understand where it's going and made me edit to a different degree, because if I don't have it, I don't spend it. And my family just does not have that safety net that some people have. That's
right.
Not the way that we work. And I would love to have things be able to pop out of thin air, but that's just not an option for us right now.
So many places we're going to go talk about with that.
Okay.
But before we do that, let me ask this. What do you think has been maybe the easiest part of the transition? Or has there been anything that came with ease?
Things that I find easy. I love talking with my design peers on social media and Facebook and following them. The ease has been the community and the supportiveness that I've felt from them. And what's easy for me is talking about the things that I know, which is upholstery and upholstery construction and sales and how to close the sale when you have someone in front of you. Sharing that information has been super, super, super easy for me, because it just kind of rolls off the tongue. That would be something I would say is easy. But as far as some of the other things, it's been a challenge starting completely over and learning, Canva and Photoshop, and that just is a struggle.
The technology.
Yeah.
So let's go back and talk about the difficult parts of the transition, because you shared about the portfolio, about difficulty having a portfolio, because the one you had before didn't translate to what you wanted to do.
Right.
You mentioned about not then also having a lot of the extra cash laying around that you could go buy and do all the beautiful things in your own home that you wanted to do. And I want to talk about that, because there are a lot of new designers that maybe they haven't had your history in your past, but that's the same place they find themselves starting their business is, I want to start, I don't have a portfolio, and I am living in an apartment, or, I can't afford to do it on my own. How do I get started? And it is a very real challenge. And for many of us, we find that maybe what we do sometimes is, and I know you and I are going to have an ideal client conversation in a few minutes, but we may have to find ourselves working for a little bit lesser rate to get some portfolio pictures to begin with, even vignettes for friends, and smaller things. So we may have to think way outside of the box when it comes to that, or doing like you're doing some of the trade with the branding experts, so that you could go in, so that you can do some things at least to get shots of vignettes in small areas like that. So, this is a challenge that we can find ourselves faced with regardless. It's a starting challenge, whether we're starting for the first time or starting over. It's a starting, or just starting with a new aspect of our business. That's the challenge.
Right. Yep. It's starting it all over again.
And the technology part's hard. So I feel you on that one. I feel you that. What have you found that has been an inspiration to you during this time?
Again, the social media peers, the community that we've developed online, and everyone is so supportive and friendly. And that's really been kind of my turn to for someone who understands you.
Yeah, it's important to have that peer group and to be involved in things like that. And there are so many great Facebook groups out there that you can connect. You had mentioned too, and there's no way I can skim past this one, is Profit First, and how that has really helped you in your business. And that was one of the things that connected the two of us, oh
Mm-hmm.
gosh, probably a year and a half, if not almost 2 years ago, because I think you reached out to me in November of 17 was the first time that you and I connected. And we were talking about the finances, and we were talking
Right.
about debt and profit first and all that. And then we connected on the podcast in 18.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we are in 19, almost 2 years later. Tell me, I know you had said in the last podcast, gosh, I wish I'd known profit first earlier, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Really. And I cannot stress enough to people why that is so important. But I also want to stress before we jump into your story with it. I have a course, Master Your Profit. And I think it is so important for those in this creative industry, interior design, staging, upholstery, workroom, to take my course. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's important that they take my course in addition to the book. The book is awesome, but the book tells you one way to do it. And in our businesses, they are complex and they're varied. And so that one way doesn't work for everybody with ease. And so one of the things that I teach is the strategy of how to think about it so that you can apply it to your business. So I just want to give a shout out to the Master Your Profit, and you can find that at scarletthreadconsulting.com. But you took those principles of profit first, and tell me how you first started implementing them, and when did you start seeing, let's say, the positive outcome from that?
Mm-hmm. Well, my first introduction to profit first was when you were on Luann's podcast. I probably listened to that 3-4 times, and just it struck me dead in my tracks about scalability. And at the time, I was still running the upholstery business, and it put a definition and a term to what intuitively I knew was completely wrong about where we were. My business was not scalable. It just was not scalable because I didn't have enough labor and enough hands to get the jobs done to the degree of what people were asking for. I mean, we were booked out, 90 to 120 days out, but you're stuck only on what, a few set of hands could get cranked out in a period of time. And that combined with looking at the bottom line and the numbers and all of that just made me go, okay, here's a problem. And then I started looking at it, and putting those numbers to paper made me realize at that same time also, okay, this doesn't work. And it just happened to align in time that my mom needed to retire. She had been very sick, and she's doing great now, which is awesome. But that just really put the nail in the coffin and said, okay, time to wrap it up. This isn't working. So that was a hard, grieving transition to go through. But the way I implemented it was I had a huge ball of debt and a lease payment, which I am still paying on, even though I don't have the actual rent, but I was in a lease situation. So I'm still paying rent on a place I don't own or have. And then I had sales tax that I was paying off and debts going out the door. So I just laid out all my finances, looked at them, got rid of my car. So I bought a car that was paid for in cash. So eliminated the car payment, things like that, eliminated the high overhead, and then started segmenting my accounts on an Excel spreadsheet. I do have 3 bank accounts, so I don't have bank accounts for every single account because that's just more than I can wrap my hands around. But I do keep it on paper, and it's about being disciplined enough to update it and keep it and look at it and put it in that segment. And when you have not really any money coming in and you're looking at, okay, owner's draw, owner's pay should be X percentage, but you have this looming debt, the only way you're going to knock out that looming debt is to go, okay, well, I'm not going to take all of that. I'm just going to take a little nibble of that, just enough for gas money, just enough for dog food and food on the table. The rest of it just gets rolled straight into that debt. And luckily, I have my Kansas sales taxes almost 100% paid after a year. And I'm mostly paid with the lease. So everything that I've done has been just
paid on debt
into that. Just dropped into that.
So I'll tell you that, I mean, there are so many things of Profit First that I love because I've seen it make a difference in my business. You know, I got hit one year, years ago, where we ended up having to pay federal taxes on money that we'd brought into our house and spent. And I didn't realize and wasn't advised properly on how to save the money out for that and different things, because we're all learning in this, right? And that's why, I mean, that's why I walk around with waving the flag. There's a better way. Let me help you. Let me help you.
Right.
But I think one of the big pieces of both, you know, we're big Dave Ramsey financial peace planning fans at my house. And we're also, of course, Profit First fans. And I think the biggest thing for me, and you mentioned it, is it's that everything gets scrutinized. Nothing is left without being looked at. Like nothing's hidden in a corner. And so everything gets put out for inspection all the time. We're inspecting, what debt do we owe? We're inspecting, do I need it? Do I not need it? What can I do to not gratify for today so that I can save for tomorrow? Like you said, dog food, we eat. It's like, what are the basics? And then the rest goes over here. It's paying down that debt and having a plan to pay down that debt. Even if the debt is just repaying us because we put money in to start the company. It's, you know, we all have something potentially at some point in our journey that says we've put money into the company, even if it's just the startup capital. And so what Profit First does, like you said, it's being intentional about looking at everything. And that's what makes a big difference, is just that intentionality. And that's that kind of idea that nothing gets by without being reviewed.
Right. And I think if I'd had that tool, I probably would have not been in such an upside down hole. I might have made adjustments earlier on. I mean, I knew intuitively, I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't identify it. I couldn't put my finger on it, because when you're so busy and you got money coming in and you're doing this, you don't realize that what you're doing is not profitable. It's not making money. It's actually putting you in the hole. But when you're busy, it feels good. It totally feels good. But even now with the debt reduction, and you have I have my little Excel spreadsheet for advertising and marketing, and I'm still putting money into that. And I'll look at it and go, okay, this is what I have available to spend for marketing. And I'm not going to spend that this month. I'm going to get all of it balled up because I have a goal of what I do want to spend. I do want to have photography for a portfolio because I've identified that's my weak spot. That's what I need to do. Photography is expensive. Therefore, I need to have a financial goal for that. And when my bottom line Excel spreadsheet says that I can spend it, that's when I'll spend it, because I don't have the flexibility of a safety net to borrow money from my husband or, you know, that kind of thing. That's not the way our family financials are taken care of. He takes care of the house and, you know, certain things. And I have to take care of my own financial obligations. And you know, everyone has their own different way of doing things. I just don't have that safety net.
Right. And you know what? There are many other professionals out there that don't have that safety net. Some do. I teach and share and coach and advise that we should all be working as if we don't have that safety net, because that's what keeps us on our toes and willing to inspect everything. When we get complacent and comfortable and we think, oh, there's money that can bail me out of this, without thinking of it very strategically, we can be very fooled into thinking that we are more profitable than we are and not make the decisions we need to make when we need to make them. So there are also many single earners that do what we do, right? Single family earners, excuse me. And they have to think about all of these things. And so it really does make your business stronger when you don't have a safety net. It doesn't make it maybe as comfortable, but it does make it overwhelmingly stronger.
And it so makes you look to those people who do, like, I'm thinking top of my head, my current design crush is Victoria Solomon, because she has hustled her till she off. And she is always ever present, always putting out amazing content, beautiful portfolio work. And she's just put her nose to the grindstone and is cranking some stuff out. And so I completely admire what she's doing, and the changes I've seen in her business over the last year. So that's what I'm working to emulate right now, is keeping my nose to the grindstone, and she can do it, and that makes me feel I can do it too.
One of the things that Veronica shares, and I so love, is that she will tell us, and she says it in her Facebook group and other places, I need you to know I work a lot. This is not a 40-hour-a-week job for me. I mean, she goes and works and comes home and works again. So I love that it's that I'm going to show you behind the beautiful picture, that there is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and time and energy that she focuses on building this business. So it's not, I'm going to work part-time and this is what happens. That is not what she's doing. I mean, she is killing it, but she is literally working extremely long hours, which she says she loves. It brings her joy. And I think we have to keep that in mind, because I know, Richelle, it can be very easy, not just for you, but for all of us, to see somebody else succeeding, and we don't look at what it takes for them to succeed. And I think she's been super honest about, you're seeing these things, but you need to know they came with a lot of work, multiple years, and consistency of approach.
And truth be told, that the kind of lifestyle that that she leads, working as much as she does, her children are older, and they don't need her to make dinner, that kind of thing. So I think there are things that happen as you evolve in your life, that your business reflects that. I know when I had small kids at home underfoot, you squeeze in and you make time, and then you don't want to be watching the soccer game, answering emails. You have to be present for what your priority is. And that's just part of the life cycle of being an entrepreneur and trying to have a family and having a balance of quality of life, quality of family, and an income. That's a lot of balls to keep in the air all at once. And when you can let go of a ball, say your children are out of the house. I have 3 out of the house, but I still have my bonus baby who's 10 at home, and she still does need me. She doesn't need me as much as she used to, but I see that evolution. And I know there are a lot of younger designers who might be comparing themselves to someone who can have the flexibility and time to work a 60, 70, 80-hour work week, when you're just lucky to get something done during nap time.
I've been there.
Put on yourself to make that realization, just go, this is where I am in my life, and I am doing an important work of creating a decent, kind human being, and that might be more important. And that's okay.
Yes, I agree with you. And like Veronica and you, I started the same. I had kids underfoot. They were little. And as my kids grew, I've shared this on multiple podcasts. So did my business, for the phase that we were in. And I have one who is out of the house, just bought his own house. And so he's like way out of the house. Mm-hmm. And I have a second who's a senior in college. And so, they're not around, they're not here. And I do have more time and energy for a short season. I'm kind of looking at the season before grandbabies, that I can pour into the business and do like Veronica and spend those hours. And so we do have to keep all of this in mind as we're transitioning or building or growing. It just doesn't all happen overnight, and we all have different time that we can put into it. Because I've been that mom who checked email during the soccer game, and that did not go over so well. And so that's not what we want to do.
Right. And it's all part of the journey. And when you're an entrepreneur, regardless of whether you're an interior designer or a workroom owner or a consultant, whatever it is, if you're an entrepreneur, that's a lifestyle, and it has seasons that go up and seasons that go down and seasons of different focus. So we'll never retire. I know I'll probably, this is just my life. This is the way it is. I can't imagine not doing something as an entrepreneur. But, it's all part of the journey, and you have to embrace the journey where you are for right now and
Yeah.
be okay with it.
And be okay with it. Which brings me to my next question. So you've been transitioning, you're shifting your business from focusing, and I love how you said that, antique, older pieces restored as art. I do love that. And we talked about, I just think that's just a beautiful way of saying it. But you're also transitioning now into more full house, full room design projects, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So we've got this transition, but it doesn't happen overnight. And in the interim, you also still have to bring in money to the family. Like, you don't get to go on a 1-year hiatus that says, hey, I've got like another $15,000 to pour into this business to rebrand it and rebuild it and redo it. I've got to be building this almost. I mean, I'm just going to say the way it would be for me, and then you can tell us if that's the way it is for you. It's almost like I got to go get a day job, and now I got to make that my side hustle to get it built back up to replace my day job. That's what it would have to be for me and for many of my clients. We go out, we get a day job, if you will. It might be in the industry, it might not be, but it's something that brings in enough income that it satisfies the family needs while I'm maybe rebuilding, rebranding, repositioning, on the side hustle until the side hustle grows up and takes over the day job. Has that been similar to your experience?
Yes, it is. I took a job at Nordstrom over the holidays and worked in the designer section. That was a lot of fun. It was hard on my body. Oh my gosh, retail at 50 is not good on your bones. But then I also do a rep position for a local, well, it's a national flooring company, but it's out of a local office. So sales and knowing how to close a sale is, that's been a consistent for me. So that's allowed me to have a little income to make sure I have gas in the car and, the things that we need. But it's a skill. Not everybody has that skill, but I've been able to rely back on it because it's also translatable in different industries, retail, repping, all of that. And I can also use it when I am in front of a client.
Right. So that's been the day job and what you're working on, which is still in the industry of sales, right? Which is, like you said, what we do all the time. And building up the side hustle, the design to get back into that, to have the portfolio, to have the clients, to build the funnel. You and I talked about prior to, and I want to make sure we touch on the term ideal client. And all right, so because especially in a transition period, ideal client it shows up differently. We maybe have to deal with it differently. Now, we both, I think, agree that we need to have an idea of who is an ideal client for the offerings that we have. Like, we need to know who's going to buy it. Because if nobody's going to buy what we're offering, then we might want to shift that around a little bit. So we do have an idea of who that person might be. But when we're first getting started, there is no promise that that ideal client is going to be the one reaching out to us, especially, as you mentioned, if there's any level of mixed messaging or just not even having a broadness of message, right? So it's very narrow in our reach. There's no promise that only our ideal client is going to reach out to us.
Right. Well, I think we have the ideal client to me is someone who needs your service and that you can provide it to them. So that makes for a lot of people that are ideal clients. If they've got money and they can pay for the service I can render and it's a win-win, then that's an ideal client to me. I do understand that there's, you make what is the name? What's that term? Ego something or other. Something, the term escapes me, but it's where you create an individual and you say, okay, Jane is 50 years old. She's empty nester. She has $50,000 to spend on this budget, and she wants everything. Well, I think that's a nice ideal, but I'm not sure that that's a huge, realistic ideal client. I mean, I get it for making marketing and creating your services, but if you're creating services and there are not enough Janes out there, you're not going to be working.
Right. So you're talking about a client avatar. So when we create
Thank
this,
you. That's
mhm,
the word I was looking for. Client
yep.
avatar.
So we've created it. And usually what the idea is that we create it, as you said, for marketing is for the messaging so that
Right.
everything we do speaks to Jane.
That
Right.
brand of Jane.
Everything
But I
of the
think you
brand of
have to
Jane.
look how many Janes are out there.
Right. Which
You
again,
have
we
to
can't
make
be
it
so,
wider and go,
yes.
what's the demographic? Did you know that the average age of the United States person is 26, 27 years old? There are more 26, 27 year olds in the United States now. That is the largest occurring age. So if we're all hunting Jane who's 50, we're all looking for the same Jane. So maybe look at creating a avatar that is a little bit different. We all want to work with people who are theoretically like us, but there's there's not as many Janes as there might be, Susies.
So one of the things I was going to say is we have a strategy that's strategic, right? When we create that avatar, it's the strategy of our ideal client. Who are we going to message to? Who are we going to market to? Who are we going to talk to? But tactile, what happens when we get down to moving the actual chess pieces on the board, right? When we get down to that level, it's really about who's calling us. Is it a client that can afford us? They may not be Jane, but they might be Jane's close cousin. And
Right.
can we serve them? So again, you're right. We can't have an idea that is so narrow that it is such a small subset of potential clients that we back ourselves into a corner. It's got to be broad enough and open enough that there are enough clients that could potentially reach out to us. You mentioned before the call that you kind of see it like a bell curve and that your ideal is straight down the center. And we both agreed there's a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right of what we would take. And especially in a transition period, you have to be open. But I'm going to say this. I've talked to so many people lately who, even though we are 10 years out, if not even a little bit more, easily 10 years out from the recession that we had. That 2008 and 9, I'm telling you, we still feel that. It still feels almost like it was not very long ago. It is hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that that has been 10 years because it doesn't feel like 10 years. And so those of us that are in business that remember what that felt like, because if that ideal client was so narrow back then, it would have been very difficult to stay in business if you hadn't adjusted. A lot of people talked about how they adjusted. So that goes back to even now, I hear people go, I'm almost fearful of not taking a client because I don't know that the next one will come. And so it's a balancing act for sure. And even more so during a startup or a transition.
Well, I don't think anyone should ever work with clients who are abusive. So I don't think you can or should take everything, but
yeah,
where I was going with that. But
I agree.
There's different ways to handle, and if you're a professional, you can deal with a lot of different people types, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different aesthetics that may or may not necessarily jive with your own. I've had clients that their aesthetic is not me and it's not about me. It's about them and what they want. And so I'm going to deliver it because that's what they want. I know how to create the balanced finish. I know how to layer the textures. I know how to implement the design rules and elements that are necessary to get it all together. But would I walk away from that and go, I want to live in that? No, not necessarily. But are they happy as Punch? Absolutely.
And do they want to live in that? Yeah. So
they're
that's
happy.
Good.
It's not about me. The whole thing, it's not about me.
So I also noticed, and you had shared earlier when I asked you what one of the easier things was about this, and you said communicating online and with your peers in multiple ways. You are known very much in the online circles to share and to give back. And even recently, you got a big shout out from somebody who just publicly wanted to thank you for pouring into them. And it could be easy when we're going through our own transitions to kind of hide away, to kind of pull back, to not engage at the same level, it becomes a way of us maybe taking care of ourselves and blocking a little bit. You haven't done that. You've done, I would say, or if you've done it, it hasn't been noticed. Instead, it's almost like you did the opposite. You know what? This is what happened. Let me help you. Let me help you. Let me pour into you. Let me share. And I've seen that online, and it was noticed by others online. And so how have you used your challenges and also your experience and your expertise to help others? And why is that so important to you?
Well, it just makes me feel good. I love that feeling of being able to help someone else out of something that maybe they're struggling with. And it's not so much if I'm giving my advice that I expect you to take it. I know people who are like, wow, why bother asking my advice if you're not going to do it? No, that's not the way I feel about it. I just want to share what experiences I've had, some of the challenges I've had, and maybe help them get better. My husband has a saying. He calls it his Tony math, because he's 55, and he says, okay, I've spent 55 years learning to do XYZ mistakes. Why do I want my kids or anyone else following me to do the same XYZ mistakes? If we can share that information, then we all grow, and my experience helps level other people up. And that just makes me happy to be able to see someone else grow above and beyond where maybe I've stopped, what that experience, they're going to take that knowledge and move so far forward. I think it's just great. It's exciting.
It is exciting, and it does feel really good. I always say to my kids, listen, I can tell you every pothole in the road that I've hit. And so if I can save you from hitting those, trust me, you're going to hit your own. You're going to hit your own fair share.
Right.
Why do you have to hit the ones I hit, right? And blow out a tire or cause a problem? Why? Don't do that. So
Yep.
I'll share it with you. If you choose to take the hit, then you can take the hit.
Let's just make improved mistakes.
It
right?
is.
Everybody learns by the mistakes, but let's make improved ones.
And I'm, I hear this weekly. I wish I had known that earlier. I wish I had known that earlier. And I don't want to be responsible like you for holding on to information that I'm not sharing that can make the journey easier if we have a way to do that. So Richelle, tell us, what are you working on now?
I'm trying to learn Photoshop. I grew up came to the design industry during, hand rendering, hand drawing, and I can do a penciled drawing and a sketch pretty quickly. But now I'm learning the Photoshop and how to deal with mood boards, and it's a completely different aesthetic than what I'm comfortable with. So I'm working out of that comfort area and moving towards some e-design, trying to create packages for people who are in that 27, 28. I'm thinking about what I did at 27 and 28. I was a mother, happily moving the furniture I owned around multiple times. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the ability to do that. But our 27 and 28-year-olds now, they're looking for some solutions that they can afford. And as much as I would love to tell them, because I know this mistake, don't buy cheap, because it's just going to be disposable. I'd like to be able to integrate and show them how to create a purchasing plan.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea. My son is almost 25. And as I said, he just bought his first house. And it's been interesting because if he were to listen to the input from the many people that are telling him, he has quite a few females who are willing to tell him how he should do that house. It's been kind of funny. But you can't take them all. You can't take all this information. You can't take a piece from here and a piece from there. And he's been really great because he's made the comment. He's like, excuse me, I have a mom that can help me with all that. And so we've been going through and I've started, it's been interesting because he's always just lived in our home, right? He went off to college and had a bachelor pad at school, totally different. But now that it's his home and I'm going, what do you like? it's been eye-opening to hear what he likes, because it's not necessarily the style we have in our own home. And then explaining to him, which it's not like he doesn't know, but like, here's solid pieces. Let's start here. Like you said, here's a plan. And he's happy with that. He doesn't have to feel like he has to have it all at once. But just knowing how to layer and how to do these things. It's just been an interesting process. And I think that's a great age group to serve. I was at 28, I had my first child and had him, as a matter of fact. And we were doing the same thing. We were moving things around the house. But we bought really great furniture. And then now I look at it and I've got Queen Anne cabriolet legs. I've got cherry and mahogany all over the place. And of course, that's not what anybody wants these days, but I've got heirloom quality furniture. So, it's just been funny to watch the process. And I think that's a great demographic to serve. And they can afford at least to buy a plan. They have the money to buy the plan.
And a plan, I think all of the money I spent and I wasted as a early young homeowner trying to decorate something, to where I wasted so much money that if I'd had a plan that was like, okay, you need X piece, this size, this, go forth. And if you find it, if you want a trade source, I'll help you with it. If you want to find it at a yard sale, go forth, have at it, right. But I'm here as your safety net, your kickstand, if you will, to be here to help you bounce ideas off of it. But that's one thing that I'm doing, trying to figure out how to appeal to that. I have a 28-year-old, and that's where she is, trying to balance the amount of money that she has, but knowing some things she has to have it now. How do we get it? How do we make the balance work and the budget work? And then inputting, okay, honey, you really want to wait on this one because you're going to get the most return on your investment if you invest in this piece versus that piece. So I love that. I do love that. And I'm also working on revamping my upholstery course, and I've partnered with Kristen Drohan of Kristen Drohan Collection, and we're going to be putting together a CEU for designers, and then something that's a little more approachable for basic consumers to know what upholstery construction is like. So you can make an informed decision on, do you want that heirloom piece, or what are the sacrifices if you choose to buy something off of a big box? What can you expect?
That's great. And that's much needed. What do you think one of the biggest lessons for you over the last year has been? What are you learning?
Oh gosh, that is a loaded question, Michelle. What am I learning?
You know what, though? Let me say this, Richelle. My whole way of thinking is this: when something happens, small, medium, large, I always think, what worked really well, and I would do that again. What did not work well, and I would change, add, or delete. And then just, what did I learn? Kind of like when you said a minute ago, if I can learn from it, then I can move forward. What is one of the big lessons, or something that you're in the process of learning?
I think it's about relationship building and being open and giving. And in a sales job that I've been working with, I work with a lot of clients who just, quite frankly, can't afford the product. And they're not bad people because they can't afford it, or they don't have a clue how much X is going to cost. They're not bad. I'm informing them of it, letting them know. And if it's not within their ability to afford something at this time, I'm creating that relationship with them that they're going to know who to ask when the time comes. Or they're going to say to their friend, this person really helped me. I'm not in a position to purchase right now, but maybe you are. So what I've really seen probably as the most positive thing is that kindness towards other people, the being open, the being willing to share, the relationship building, and the meeting of such amazing people. Everyone has a story to tell. And that's what I think has been the most fun, is just meeting so many different types of people. I love that.
Well, and relationship building leads to networking, that leads to a wider funnel. And a wider bell curve of ideal clients. So
Sure.
that's a
Sure.
good thing. Yeah. So what's one of the next profit goals in your business? What are you working towards right now in that way?
My immediate profit goal, to continue getting completely debt free, hopefully in the next 6 months, but to get my living room ready for the one room challenge so that I have something that I can control for photos.
Oh, I love that. That's exciting.
So just creating some vignettes and creating some personal portfolio areas for my website.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners, Richelle?
Gosh, I just think everyone should be looking at their bottom line numbers and not be afraid of it. It's really empowering as opposed to a scary thing. It may be something they don't like the way that things look, but knowledge is power, and just be a good person and things come back around to you.
The first part almost sounds like I planted that. I really didn't.
Oh, no, you didn't. I promise you didn't.
But I promise it is. It's the numbers are so empowering that you then have, my tagline is, if you own it, you can change it. And if you own those numbers, then you can affect the change that you need if they're not enough, or what you want to do with them. And so
change direction.
Yeah, changing any of it. And so
analyze it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Very powerful. My Understanding Your Financials course teaches you how to read those numbers and understand them and have that exact power. So thank you, even for just mentioning how important it is to know that. Richelle, where are you hanging out these days? Do you have a website? Where are you on Instagram?
Oh, yes. Oh, you want to hear okay, so here's the fun thing that I did learn, lesson learned here. I had a domain, sitzenhouse.com, which had a G Suite attached to it. Here's my little tip. If you get rid of a domain with a G Suite attached to it, make sure you've backed up all of your emails and that you've changed every little thing that's attached to that email G Suite. Yeah.
Oh.
Website address is now rlpinteriors.com. And it's that transition of going, wait a minute, I lost that email. Wait a minute, I can't get into that account because sitzenhouse.com doesn't exist anymore. Awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's a little tip.
That's a little tip. That's a good tip. That we might need to make that a big tip.
That's a big tip. Yeah.
That's a big tip. Yeah. That's a lesson learned. That's the pothole to avoid, right?
Yes. Don't go changing everything until you've backed up everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. Good one. Well, Richelle, thank you so much for talking to us today and sharing some of your transition, the continued transition, the journey of what you're learning and going through. And I know that there are many business people that maybe they haven't had the same exact experience, but there are bits and pieces of your journey that we've all been through or will go through or is on the horizon for us. So thank you for just removing the glamour shot and doing the Polaroid.
My tube top's slipping.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you again, Richelle, for joining us today. Moving forward isn't always easy, and it's not always glamorous or exciting. And sometimes, honestly, we do it with gritted teeth. But as Richelle mentions, we don't have to do it alone. There is community waiting to support and encourage you. And if you need support and direction, please consider joining the Designer's Inner Circle. You can find all the details at scarletthreadconsulting.com. We're waiting for you because, as Richelle shared, profit doesn't happen by accident.